3 months had passed since Caspian had fallen asleep. Elias was trying to return his life to normal, but it wasn't easy. The crystal stone was still in his pocket, and sometimes, feeling its warmth, he knew that Caspian lived on in dreams. Magnus was no longer living a secret life either. He was living with his son, continuing to teach him about the elven world that Sunday morning. Elias was having breakfast at Kaflinia in the center of Kiruna. He loved this place because it was calm and peaceful, as he was working on a history article. The cafe door opened and a young woman entered. When Elias looked up, his breath caught. The woman was in her mid-20s, with long black hair and very familiar green eyes. But the truly shocking thing was the expression on her face. It was the same mature, ancient look as Caspian's. The woman looked around the cafe, and her eyes stopped when they met Elias's. An expression of recognition appeared on her face, and she walked straight to his table. "Elias Thornfield," she said as she sat down. Her voice was familiar to Caspian's voice, but the female version. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. That too was a familiar smile. "I am Astoria Blackwood, but you know me as Caspian." Elias's hands began to tremble. "That's impossible. Caspian is asleep." "He is asleep, yes, but he sees you in his dreams. And I was born from his dreams." "What do you mean?" Astoria ordered a coffee from the waitress, then turned back to Elias. "When the Leo Salfar dream, sometimes those dreams take a real form. I was created as the dream form of Caspian's happy memories with you. Are you real? I am as real as you want me to be, but I am also a dream." Elias looked around the cafe. The other customers seemed to see Astoria as a normal woman. Nothing was out of the ordinary. "Why have you come?" "Because Caspian is very unhappy in his dreams. He misses you constantly, and that affects me too." "Can I see him?" Astoria shook her head. "No, but I can deliver his messages to you." "What messages?" Astoria took a small notebook from her bag. "This is his dream journal. I record the dreams he has every night." When she opened the notebook, he saw texts written in a childish hand. "Night 1, we were playing as children again with Elias. He was so happy. I wish it were real. Night 15, Elias has grown up, but we are still friends. I am teaching him the language of the crystal stones. Night 32, Elias is married and has children. I am playing with his children. A beautiful dream." As Elias flipped through the pages, the journal became much more personal. Night 67, I am so lonely. Even in my dreams, I can't hold on to Elias. He is living, I am sleeping. Night 89, maybe I should let him go. This is an injustice. Is he really sorry? Very sorry. And also very scared. Why is he scared? Astoria adopted a more serious expression. Because the effect of the sleep stone is much stronger than expected. He might not sleep for 100 years, but for thousands. Elias's blood ran cold. How is that possible? The stone Magnus used was very old, and Caspian was so tired that he went deeper than a normal sleep. Does my father know this? He doesn't, because this is a very rare situation. Astoria showed another page from the notebook. Night 95, Astoria warned me. I am sleeping too deeply. Maybe I will never wake up again. So what can we do about it? There is a way, but it is very dangerous. What is it? Astoria lowered her voice. You can come to the dream world and wake him. To the dream world? How is that possible? You carry elven blood. You can connect with the crystal stone. But if you get lost in the dream world, you could be stuck there forever, Elias thought. This seemed very risky. Is there no other way? No. Magnus's stone is too powerful. It can only be broken from the inside. From the inside, yes. From within the dream world. And only the person Caspian trusts the most can do it. Elias finished his coffee. This was not an easy decision. Astoria. Does Caspian really want to wake up? Or is it just you who wants it? That is a very important question, Astoria said thoughtfully. I was born from his dreams, so I represent his wishes. But I also have my own existence now. What do you mean, if Caspian wakes up, I will disappear? Because I am only a part of his sleeping state. This was very complicated. Astoria was actually working towards her own demise. Why are you risking your own existence? Because love sometimes requires sacrifice. Caspian has been alone for thousands of years. He should at least have a chance. Elias looked at Astoria more closely. He could see all of Caspian's good qualities in her, but there was also something different, more mature, more balanced. Astoria, are you different from Caspian? Yes, I was born only from his good memories. His loneliness, his anger, his despair are not in me. I am his perfect version, you could say. Does that make you sad? Sometimes, because I know I am incomplete. But I also show what Caspian could be. Elias stood up. I can't make this decision alone. I have to talk to my father. Magnus will not allow it. Why? Because he will not risk losing you. You are his most precious treasure. But Caspian is my friend. Yes, and that is why the decision is yours. Astoria stood up as well. Elias, I am giving you 2 days. If you decide, you can find me here. And if I don't decide, then Caspian will sleep forever. And I will slowly fade away. You will fade away. Yes, because Caspian's dreams are getting weaker. I am getting weaker too. Elias did not want to hear this. Astoria was a very beautiful and intelligent woman. It would be a great loss. Astoria, if I wake Caspian, will he be changed? I don't know. Maybe yes, because such a deep sleep could change him. For the better or for the worse, that depends on him. But at least he will have a chance. As Elias left the cafe, Astoria followed him. Elias, one last thing. If you decide to come to the dream world, there are things you must bring with you. What things? A memory from your childhood, and a protection spell from Magnus. A protection spell, yes, because in the dream world, the line between reality and illusion does not exist. It is very easy to get lost. As Astoria walked away, Elias watched her. The woman walked very gracefully, and people were looking at her with admiration. But Elias knew that she was actually a dream. When he returned home, Magnus was working in the garden. Thanks to his elven power, he could make flowers bloom even in the middle of winter. Father, I need to talk to you. Magnus cleaned his hands, and they went inside. What is it? You look very serious. There's a problem with Caspian, Elias told him about his conversation with Astoria. As Magnus listened, his face grew increasingly tense. This is very bad, he said finally. I did not know the sleep stone was so powerful. Can we save him? Magnus thought for a long time. Theoretically, it's possible, but very dangerous. How dangerous? If you get lost in the dream world, I cannot find you, because the dream world belongs only to the dreamer. But should we try? Elias, this is your decision. But know this, you don't have to do this for Caspian, but he is my friend. Yes, and friendship sometimes requires difficult choices. Magnus stood up and took an old box from a cabinet. If you really decide to go, I can cast a protection spell for you. What kind of spell? A thread that binds your soul to your body. If you get lost, this thread can bring you back. What are our chances of success? I don't know. No one has ever tried something like this before. Elias slept very little that night. He was constantly thinking about his decision. He wanted to save Caspian, but the risk of getting lost was also very great. When he woke up in the morning, he found a note under his pillow. Dear Elias, my sleep is very deep. I can't even see you clearly in my dreams. If you try to save me, be very careful. You are my only true friend. The note was written in Caspian's handwriting. But this was impossible, he was asleep. Elias showed the note to Magnus. This must be Astoria's work, said Magnus. She can carry Caspian's messages here. That shows how powerful she is, doesn't it? Yes. And it also shows how serious the situation is. Elias had finally made his decision. Father, I will try to save him. Magnus nodded with a sad but understanding expression. I knew you would say that. You would do anything for a true friend. Can you prepare the protection spell? Yes, but first, you finish your preparations. Find a memory from your childhood. Elias went up to the attic and took his old toy car, the red fire truck he used to play with Caspian. When evening came, Magnus had prepared the magical protection thread. It was a very thin, silver-colored thread, and it gave off a very light warmth when tied around Elias's wrist. This thread will bring you back. But remember, time works differently in the dream world. A day spent there could be a week lost here. I'm ready, said Elias. Magnus hugged him one last time. Be careful, my son. And remember, you are only going to wake Caspian, not to help him. What's the difference? A big difference. If you try to help him permanently, you could end up staying there too. Elias held the crystal stone in his hand and closed his eyes. Caspian, I'm coming. The stone suddenly became very bright, and Elias's consciousness faded. The last thing he saw was Magnus's worried face, and the last thing he heard was a familiar voice from a distance. Elias. My friend, you've finally come. When Elias opened his eyes, he found himself in a place that was familiar, yet different. It was his childhood summer house, but it looked much larger and more colorful. The walls shimmered in pastel tones, and crystal icicles hung from the ceiling. This was a version of reality far more beautiful, but also much stranger. Elias, the voice was familiar, but different. When he turned, he saw Caspian, but he too had changed. He still looked 8 years old, but there was an even deeper wisdom in his eyes. And strangest of all, he seemed very pale, almost blurry, just like in the old photographs. Caspian, I finally found you. Caspian ran and hugged him, but Elias couldn't quite feel him. It was like embracing a dream. Are you real? Caspian asked in astonishment. Yes, I'm real. I've come to wake you. Caspian's face fell. But I don't want to wake up. Why not? Because everything is perfect here. Look. Caspian waved his hand, and the room's interior suddenly changed. It was now a giant playground, filled with every kind of toy and amusement. I can create anything I want here, and if you decide to stay, we can play together forever. Elias looked around. It truly looked magical, but something was missing. Caspian, who else is here? No one, just me. What about your other friends? Lars, Ingrid, Johan, Caspian's expression changed. They are in different places, where, I don't know. When they grew up, they didn't want to play with me anymore. Then they disappeared. Elias realized how sad that was. Did they leave you? Yes. Even here, they grew up and forgot me. Then they went to their own dream worlds. That must have left you lonely, it did. But now you're here. Caspian suddenly cheered up. And you won't grow up because time doesn't pass in your world. Elias was surprised by this. Really, yes. You can be any age you want here. Caspian waved his hand again, and Elias suddenly saw himself as his 7-year-old self. It was a very strange feeling. His mind was an adult's, but his body was a child's. How is this possible? Anything is possible in the dream world. Let's play. But Elias felt that something was wrong. Caspian, wait a minute. What is it? Are you really happy here? Caspian hesitated. Of course I'm happy. But Astoria told me otherwise. You know Astoria. Caspian's eyes widened. Yes, she was born from your dreams. Is she real? Yes. And she said that you were actually very unhappy. The colorful world around Caspian suddenly darkened. The toys disappeared, and the room began to look much plainer. Astoria is telling the truth, Caspian said sadly. I am very lonely here. Then why don't you want to wake up? Because I'm even lonelier in the real world. At least here, I can dream. Elias approached him. But dreaming isn't living, I know. But I don't know how to live. What do you mean? Caspian sat on the floor and hugged his knees. I have existed for thousands of years, but I have never truly lived. I keep repeating the same thing. I find a child friend. I play with them, and when they grow up, I lose them. It's a cycle, yes, and I don't know how to get out of this cycle. Elias sat down next to him. Maybe you can learn. Will you teach me? This question affected Elias deeply. Caspian, I'm only a few years older than you. I'm trying to learn how to live too. But you live in the real world. You work, you meet people, you change. It's not always easy, I know. But at least it's real. The room's interior changed again. This time it became a much simpler place. There were only 2 chairs and a table. Elias, said Caspian, I'm going to ask you for something, but it's very difficult. What is it? Take me to the real world, but not as a child. What do you mean? I want to try being an adult. Maybe that way I can break the cycle. Is that possible? I don't know. But I want to try, Elias thought. This seemed very risky. Caspian, what will happen if this doesn't work? Then at least I will have tried. And what if it does work? If you become an adult, will you still be the same Caspian? Caspian thought for a long time. I don't know. Maybe I will change. Maybe I will change a lot. Doesn't that scare you? It scares me a lot, but loneliness is scarier. Elias stood up. It was time to make a decision. All right. But how are we going to do it? We have to break the sleep stone from the inside. But first I need to find my adult form. How will you find it? You can be anything you want in the dream world, but for it to be permanent, you need a very strong desire. Caspian closed his eyes and began to concentrate. As Elias watched him, he saw the boy's body slowly begin to change. First he grew taller, then his face matured. His hair became darker, and his body structure changed. A few minutes later, a handsome young man in his mid-20s was standing before him, but his eyes were still the same, those deep, ancient, tired, green eyes. How does it feel? Asked Elias. Very strange, said the adult Caspian. His voice had changed deeper and more mature. It was as if my thousands of years of memories were trapped in a child's body. I feel more comfortable now. Do you like this form? I do. But the real test will be in the real world. Caspian looked around. Now we have to find the sleep stone. Where is it? It's hidden somewhere in this room. Magnus's spell brought it here. The two of them began to search the room. Finally, they found a small blue stone under the table. This is it, said Caspian, but it's not easy to break. We have to break it together. How? You represent the real world. I represent the dream world. If we both touch it, the bond between the two worlds will be broken. Elias reached for the stone. Are you ready? No, Caspian said with a smile, but let's do it anyway. They both touched the stone at the same time. Suddenly, there was a terrible sound, like glass shattering. The room around them began to fall apart. The colors faded, the objects disappeared. Elias shouted, Caspian, the thread on your wrist. Elias looked at his wrist. The silver thread Magnus had given him was glowing. This will take us back. But let me come too. I can't stay here alone. Elias took Caspian's hand. We'll go together. The thread became very bright, and both of their consciousnesses faded. Elias opened his eyes in his room at Magnus's house. His head was spinning, and he was very tired. But the most important thing was that someone was with him. Caspian was there. In his adult form, in the real world, breathing. Elias. Are you all right? Magnus asked, running in through the door. I'm fine, Dad, and I brought Caspian. Magnus looked at Caspian in astonishment. You look very different. I decided to become an adult, Caspian said, standing up. I don't know how it will be, but I want to try. Magnus looked at him carefully. You are still a Leo Selfa, but you are different. How am I different? You seem more balanced, not as desperate as before. Caspian went to the window and looked outside. The real world looks very different through adult eyes. In a good way, yes. More complex, but more interesting. Elias stood up. He was still a bit dizzy. Caspian, you don't regret it, do you? No, but I am very scared. Why? Because now I have to really live. There's nowhere to run. Magnus intervened. Caspian, you can stay here, but you have to follow the rules. What rules? You will no longer influence other children, and you will try to live like a normal person among people. Can I do that? I don't know. But Elias can help you. Caspian turned to Elias. Will you really help me? Of course. That's what friends are for. But I'm not a child anymore. It won't be like before, I know, but maybe it will be better. At that moment, the door knocked. Magnus went to open it and returned with Astoria. Astoria, Caspian said in surprise. Are you still here? Yes, Astoria said with a smile. And I won't disappear anymore. Why not? Because now that you are truly awake, I have become real too. How is that possible? Magnus explained. When you decided to become an adult in the dream world, Astoria became your counterpart in the real world. So there are two of us now. No, said Astoria. We are two different aspects of the same being. You represent the male energy. I represent the female energy. Caspian was trying to understand this. This is very confusing, but it's beautiful, said Elias. You are not truly alone anymore. That evening, the four of them had dinner together. Caspian really liked real-world food. He used to only eat dream food. Elias, Caspian said after dinner. "Thank you so much. Why? Not for saving me, for giving me a real chance to live. That's what friends are for. But you took a big risk. So did you. You left your childhood behind." Caspian smiled. "Yes, and I don't regret it at all." That night, Elias was very relieved as he went to bed. Caspian was safe now and could live a real life. But the story was not over yet. When he woke up in the morning, he heard voices coming from Caspian's room. When he went to look, he saw him talking with Astoria. "Are we the same person?" Caspian was saying. "No," Astoria was saying. "We are two different expressions of the same soul. You represent the male energy, I represent the female energy. Is that a good thing?" "It's very good. Because you are not alone anymore. And neither am I." Elias smiled and walked away. Caspian now had not only him, but also himself. But the most important thing was that they now had a real friendship. Not a childhood fantasy, but an adult reality. And perhaps that was what everyone was looking for. Caspian's first week in the real world was much harder than expected. Magnus had provided him with a legal identity. According to the fake documents, Caspian Aldridge was a 25-year-old researcher from abroad. But even the simple details of daily life seemed very complicated to him. "What is this?" Caspian asked, examining the credit card Elias showed him. "It's used to buy things with money. But this is just plastic. How can it be money?" Elias tried to explain patiently, but it was really difficult for Caspian to understand the modern world after his thousands of years of existence. Worse still, Caspian had trouble controlling his old habits. The first day he went to the supermarket, the cashier's little daughter looked at him, and Caspian reflexively tried to touch the child's mind. "Stop," Elias had shouted, grabbing Caspian's hand. "Remember, you're not going to touch children anymore." Caspian had pulled his hand back, but there was guilt on his face. "I'm sorry, it's a habit." That evening at home, Magnus had a serious talk with them. "Caspian, you can stay here, but this is a trial period. If you return to your old behaviors, we may have to send you away." "Where?" "To the lands of the Lyosulfar, to your own kind." This thought terrified Caspian. "They won't accept me, because I've changed." "Then you must be very careful to stay here." The second week was even harder. Caspian tried to find a job, but he asked strange questions in every interview. "Why do I have to work?" he had asked in an interview at a bank. "Because to earn money," the surprised interviewer had replied. "But I can create money." Caspian had waved his hand, and gold flecks had appeared on the table. Of course, he was immediately rejected for the job. Caspian, Elias, had said that evening, "You can't do magic in front of people anymore." "Why?" "It's my natural ability, because people don't understand it. They'll find you dangerous, but I'm not harming anyone." "I know, but they don't." This had made Caspian very sad. "Then how will I live? Like normal people? By working, by learning, by adapting." The third week, the real problem began. Astoria was also trying to start working, and the two of them drew a lot of attention while walking around the city together. They were both extraordinarily beautiful, and people would stare at them in admiration. But the real issue was that they would sometimes say the same things at the same time. "This is so beautiful," they had both said at the same time, looking at a shop window. The people next to them were surprised. Astoria had tried to save the situation. "We're twins. That's why we sometimes speak at the same time." But Elias knew this wasn't sustainable. People would start asking questions. They talked to Magnus that evening. "Dad, they're attracting too much attention. I know, this isn't normal. What can we do? We need to make them seem more ordinary." "How?" Magnus thought. "Maybe we should separate them. Caspian can stay here, and Astoria can go to another city." But when Caspian heard this offer, he was very upset. "No, Astoria is my only family member, but you can't stay hidden this way." "Then let's not stay hidden." This offer surprised everyone. "What do you mean?" Elias had asked. "Let's tell people the truth." "What truth?" "That I am an elf, and that Astoria is the other half of my soul." Magnus had shaken his head. "That's very dangerous. People might capture you and use you as a lab rat. Or they might worship us," Astoria had said. "That's bad too." The fourth week, the real crisis occurred. While Caspian was sitting in a cafe, he saw a very sad child at the next table. The little girl was crying because her toy was broken. Caspian couldn't resist. He stood up and went to the girl's side. "Don't be sad," he said gently. "I can fix it." He touched the toy, and it was instantly restored. But this time it was very bright and beautiful, much better than a normal toy. The little girl was overjoyed, but her mother was suspicious. "How did you do that?" Caspian didn't know what to answer. "I'm a toy repairman, but you didn't use any tools. I have a special technique." The woman was not satisfied. She took out her phone and started taking pictures. Caspian had left the cafe in a panic. That evening, Elias found him very upset. "Caspian, that was too risky. But that child was so sad." "I know, but you drew attention. That woman could share you on the internet. Is that a very bad thing?" "It's very bad. The whole world could find out about you." Caspian shut himself in his room and didn't come out the next day. Astoria tried to talk to him, but he didn't answer. The second day, Elias knocked on his door. "Caspian, can I come in?" "No, please. We need to talk." After a long silence, the door opened. Caspian looked very disheveled, and his eyes were red. "I'm a failure," he said. "Why do you think that?" "Because I can't live like a human. I do everything wrong." Elias approached him. "Caspian, you only woke up a few weeks ago. It takes time to be normal. But I can't be normal. I'm different. Being different isn't a bad thing. It's bad for humans. They don't like those who are different." Elias sat down. "Look, let me tell you something. I'm very different to you. But you're normal." "No, I'm not. I'm half elf, remember? And because of that, I've always felt different. But you managed to hide it, because I had to. But it was never easy." Caspian thought. "So how did you adapt?" "Slowly, and with a lot of patience. And most importantly, by finding true friends." "Are you my true friend?" "Of course, you're my oldest friend. But I've changed so much." "So have I. But friendship doesn't prevent change. It supports it." Caspian seemed a little relieved. "So what should I do?" "First, talk to Astoria. She's very worried too. And then we'll make a new plan together. Maybe you shouldn't try to live fully in the human world." "What do you mean?" "Maybe you should be a bridge between two worlds. Neither fully human, nor fully elf." This idea interested Caspian. "How would that work?" "I don't know yet. But we can figure it out together." They talked with Astoria for a long time that evening. She was having similar problems. "I'm also trying to live like a human, but it's very hard," she said. "So what do you want to do?" Caspian asked. "I want to help people." but not by using magic. How? I don't know. Maybe I can be a counselor, because I understand people's emotions very well. Magnus intervened. That's a good idea. You can solve people's spiritual problems, but without using magic. By using magic, but secretly. How is that possible? Elias had an idea. You can work as a normal psychologist, but you can use your powers very subtly. People won't realize it's magic. That's actually a very clever idea, said Astoria. So what will I do? Asked Caspian. You can do something similar. Maybe you can work with children, but I promise not to touch children. You promised not to harm them, but helping is different, Magnus thought. Actually, this could be possible, if Caspian works with children with special needs, ... How? Children with conditions like autism, ADHD. You can understand them because you are also different. Caspian's eyes lit up. This could really work. But you have to be very careful, said Elias. Nothing must seem abnormal. Agreed. They were all more hopeful that night. Maybe Caspian and Astoria could live in the real world, just in a slightly different way. But the next morning, the police came to their door. We're looking for Caspian Aldridge, the officer said. Why? Asked Magnus. There are strange claims about him. People are saying he has supernatural powers. Caspian was hiding, but he could hear the voice. This is very serious, Elias whispered to Magnus. Yes, it's time to make a decision. What decision? Whether Caspian will stay here or leave. And Elias understood that their story was far from over. After the police left the house, a heavy silence fell. Magnus, Elias, Caspian, and Astoria gathered in the living room, and concern was written on everyone's face. What you told them worked, Elias said to Magnus. They believed Caspian is out of town, but this is temporary, Magnus replied. They will be back. Caspian was looking out the window. Maybe I should go. This is putting you all in danger. No, Elias said firmly. We will find a solution together. But how? They are looking for me now. Astoria interjected. I noticed something. The police officer was looking at me very carefully. What do you mean? As if I were a suspect too. Maybe they are not just watching Caspian, but both of us. Magnus stood up. This is very bad. If they suspect both of you, then it's not just the local police. It might be that state security agencies are involved. Elias's blood ran cold. So, what should we do? First, we need to find out how much they know, said Magnus. And for that, we need to follow them. Late that evening, Elias was walking alone near the Kiruna police station. Magnus had cast a simple spell on him. He wasn't invisible, but he wouldn't attract much attention. He could see inside through the back window of the police station. What he saw worried him greatly. There was a large board on the wall with photos of Caspian and Astoria pinned to it. There were also numerous documents and maps. He tried to open the window. Thanks to Magnus's spell, the lock opened easily. He slipped inside silently. When he looked at the board up close, he saw that there was much more information. Not just Caspian and Astoria, but photos of other people as well. And these people looked very familiar. Lars Hedström, missing in 1987. Ingrid Carlsson, missing in 1976. Johan Persson, missing in 1965. This was the list of children Caspian had taken in the past. But the truly shocking thing was something else. At the top of the board was a title, Project Alfheim, Paranormal Entity Tracking. Project Alfheim, Elias whispered. Alfheim was the realm of the elves in Old Norse mythology. He started to go through the files on the desk. Inside were very detailed reports. Security report number 1. Subjects named Caspian, Aldridge, and Astoria Blackwood are exhibiting abilities that exceed normal human capabilities. According to witness statements, they can alter objects through magical means. Security report number 2. It is suspected that these subjects are connected to child disappearances in the past. There may be a recurring cycle since the 1950s. Elias continued. Security report number 3. It is believed that Magnus Thornfield is also connected to these events. The man is not aging at an abnormal rate, and there are unexplained events in his family. They suspect my father too, he thought. The file at the bottom was the most alarming operation plan. When the subjects are apprehended, they will be taken to a special facility. The source of their abilities will be investigated. If they are found to be dangerous, they will be isolated. When Elias read this last file, his hands began to tremble. They were planning to turn them into lab rats. Just as he was about to put the files back, he heard footsteps from outside. He immediately ran to the window, but it was too late. The door opened and 2 police officers entered. "Who are you?" The first officer shouted. Elias jumped out the window and started to run. He heard police sirens behind him. When he returned home, running, Magnus was waiting for him anxiously. "What did you learn?" "Very bad news," Elias said breathlessly. "They know everything." He told them what he had seen. Magnus's face grew darker and darker. "Project Alfheim. This is very serious. What does it mean?" "It's a secret project at the state level. They capture and study paranormal beings." Caspian and Astoria were also listening to the conversation. "So they are going to capture us?" asked Astoria. "They will try," said Magnus, "but it won't be easy." "Why?" "Because we will prepare as well." Elias was surprised. "What do you mean?" "I have been preparing for a situation like this for years. I have an escape plan." "An escape plan?" Magnus took an old map from a cabinet. It showed the Scandinavian countries, and some points were marked. These points are safe houses, places where other DK Alpha live. Can we go there? "Yes, but first, we have to do something." "What?" "We must stop Project Alfheim, because if we don't, it will threaten not just you, but all paranormal beings." Caspian stood up. "I'll go and turn myself in. That way, you will all be safe." "No," both Elias and Astoria said at the same time. "Why?" "Because even if you surrender, they won't stop looking for us," said Astoria. "And we don't know what will happen to you." Magnus spread the map on the table. "Listen, here's the plan. First, we will find the headquarters of Project Alfheim." "How?" "The files Elias saw must have the address of the central unit. And if they do, then we will go there and find out exactly what they are planning." "That's very dangerous." "Yes, but we have no other choice," Elias thought. "What if we can trick them?" "How?" "If we give them false information. For example, if we make them think that Caspian and Astoria are somewhere else." Magnus's eyes lit up. This could work. But for that, we need a very good plan. The next day, the 4 friends began to implement their plan. The first step was to leave false trails. Astoria checked into a hotel at the other end of the city under a false name. She told the staff that her boyfriend would be joining her. Caspian, on the other hand, bought a fake ticket at the airport to make it look like he was going to Stockholm. Meanwhile, Magnus and Elias were doing the real research. Using the information Elias had obtained from the police station, they were trying to find the main headquarters of Project Alfheim. "Look at this," said Magnus, pointing to a document. "There is a secret facility 50 kilometers north of Kiruna." "What kind of facility?" "Officially, it's a geological research center, but in reality, they are conducting paranormal research." "Are you sure? Look at this budget list. Too much money for normal geological research. And this equipment list. These are devices that measure magic and paranormal activity." Elias examined the list. There were indeed very strange pieces of equipment. "So how will we get there?" "At night, and very carefully. What if we get caught? Then the real trouble begins." That evening, they examined the exterior of the facility by checking the security cameras. It was a huge complex with heavy security. "How will we get in?" asked Elias. "I have my spells," said Magnus. "But once we are inside, we have to be very careful." "Why?" "Because there are paranormal activity detectors there. They could detect us immediately." Caspian and Astoria had also returned. "We left the false trails," said Astoria. "They should be looking for us in Stockholm now." "How much time will that buy us?" asked Magnus. "Maybe a day, maybe less." "Then we must act tonight." The preparations began. While Magnus prepared special spells, Elias gathered the necessary equipment. Caspian and Astoria, on the other hand, tried to control their own powers so that they would not be detected at the facility. They set out around midnight. The car was silent. Everyone was busy with their own thoughts. "Elias," Caspian said finally, "if something happens tonight, ... nothing will happen. But if it does, I want you to know that you saved my life. You saved mine too." "How? You taught me what true friendship is." Astoria also interjected, "And you taught me what it means to be real." Magnus smiled. "You three are a real team." "I hope it's enough," said Elias, watching the dark road, because ahead of them, the main headquarters of Project Alfheim was waiting, and none of them knew what they would find there. It was 2:30 in the morning when they approached the Project Alfheim facility. The facility looked like a modern research center nestled among the snowy hills, but Elias felt a much more sinister energy emanating from it. "There is very powerful magic here," Magnus whispered as he parked the car in a hidden spot on the hillside. "What kind of magic?" asked Astoria. "Banning spells, the kind that prevent the beings inside from escaping." Caspian shivered. "So, there are other beings inside?" "Most likely, and they are all prisoners." As they approached the facility, the invisibility spell Magnus had prepared earlier activated. They weren't completely invisible, but security cameras would have a hard time spotting them. "There's an underground entrance over there," said Magnus, pointing to a metal hatch on the side of the building. The hatch was protected by magical locks, but Magnus managed to disable them. The inside was very dark, and there was a metallic smell. "What is this smell?" asked Elias. "Chloride and something else," said Astoria. "It's very familiar, but I can't place it." As they walked down the corridor, they saw strange markings on the walls. There were scientific instruments, but also ancient runic symbols. "What do these symbols mean?" asked Caspian. Magnus looked carefully. "This is very old. These are entity-binding spells. Why do they need something so ancient?" "Because the beings they've captured are very powerful. Modern technology isn't enough." When they reached the first room, a cold fear ran through them. There were metal cages in the room, and inside them were superhuman beings. In the first cage was a woman who looked very old, but at the same time had very young eyes. Her hair was silver, her skin very pale. "This is a Aljosalfa," Caspian whispered. "A light elf." The woman's eyes filled with tears when she saw them. She mouthed the word help silently. In the second cage was a man who looked like Magnus, but much gloomier. "Adk Kalfa," Magnus said sadly. "One of my brothers." In the third cage, there was a young man who looked human, but had a very strange energy. "What is this?" asked Elias. Caspian approached and was shocked. "This is Lars. Lars. Which Lars?" "Lars Hedstrom, the boy who went missing in 1987, but he's grown up." Indeed, the man in the cage looked to be in his 30s, but there was a childish innocence in his eyes. "How can he be here?" asked Astoria. "I don't know, but if he's Lars, the other missing children might be here too." When they moved to the next room, they encountered even more horrific things. Here, there were not cages, but glass tubes. And inside the tubes, people of various ages lay sleeping. "What is this?" Elias asked in horror. Magnus approached and read the labels on the tubes. This one says, Ingrid Carlson, missing 1976, age, indeterminate, status, stable coma, and here, Johan Persson, missing 1965, age, indeterminate, status, memory wiped, being reprogrammed. Astoria's face turned pale. They are using the missing children as test subjects. "But why aren't they aging?" Caspian answered. "Because they stayed in our world for a long time. They absorbed elven energy. It made them semi-mortal. And now the scientists are studying this," Magnus said angrily. In the bottom tube, they saw a very familiar face. A little girl, about 7 years old, but with a maturity in her face. "Who is this?" asked Elias. Caspian approached and read the label. They noticed his voice was trembling. "Lila Anderson, missing 2010, first elf-human hybrid, full transformation, successful, hybrid. They are deliberately trying to turn children into elves." This was terrifying. They weren't just conducting research, they were actively transforming children. "We have to leave this place," said Magnus. "But first, ... double quotes. What? We must set them free. All of them. That's too dangerous. But we can't leave them here. Who knows what will happen to them?" Caspian approached the cages. "I can wake them, but it will take a lot of my strength. What if we're detected? We have to take the risk." Caspian placed his hand on the first cage. The Lyoselfar woman inside opened her eyes. She was very weak, but she was able to stand. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Friends, we've come to rescue you." The woman began to cry. "How much time has passed?" "We don't know, but a very long time." The second cage held the DK Kalfa. He was also very surprised when he woke up. "Magnus, what are you doing here, Bjorn? I've missed you so much, my brother." "How long have I been here?" "At least 10 years. Waking Lars in the third cage was more difficult. The man was very confused. "Where am I? Where's my mom?" "Lars, listen to me," Caspian said gently. "You are an adult now. A lot of time has passed." "No, I'm 7 years old. Where's Caspian? He brought me here." This was very painful. Lars's mind was still a child's, but his body had become an adult's. Opening the glass tubes was even harder. Magnus had to use special spells. When Ingrid woke up, she seemed very calm. "Who am I?" she asked. "You are Ingrid. We are taking you home." "Where is home?" Her memory had been completely wiped. Johann was in a worse state. He was very aggressive. When he woke up, "Who are you? Leave me alone." "Johann, calm down. We are friends." "I have no friends. My friends are dead." The most difficult was little Lila. The girl looked very different when she woke up. Her eyes were golden and they were glowing. "I've changed so much," she said in a childish voice. "How do you feel?" "Very powerful, but also very sad." "Why sad?" "Because I'm not a normal child anymore." At that moment, the alarm bells started to ring. Security had noticed them. "We have to get out of here now," shouted Magnus. But the corridors were filled. Security guards were running, and they had very interesting weapons. "What are those weapons?" asked Elias. "Energy weapons, designed to be used against paranormal beings." It seemed impossible for the group to escape. But at that moment, Lila stepped forward. "I can stop them," she said. "How?" The little girl raised her hands, and her eyes glowed even brighter. Suddenly, all the lights in the corridor went out. "Run now." As they ran through the dark corridors, they could hear shouts from behind them. But thanks to Lila's power, they were invisible. Finally, they reached the outer door. But before they could get to the car, they were cut off. "Stop. Hands up." 5 security guards were in front of them, their weapons aimed. "You want us to surrender," said Magnus. "Yes, and you will come quietly." But at that moment, a familiar voice came from behind them. "I don't think so." When they turned, they saw Torsten Lindquist. Magnus's friend was there, and with him were about 10 other DK Kalfa. "Torsten, how did you find us?" "I followed you. Good thing I did." The security guards were surprised. They hadn't expected so many paranormal beings. "Now you will surrender," Torsten said to the security guards. "That's impossible. We are government agents, and we are the true owners of these lands." There was a short conflict, but the elven powers were far superior. The security guards were quickly neutralized. "We must leave this place now," said Torsten. "Reinforcements will be here soon." "Where will we take the beings we rescued?" "To the safe houses. But first, we need to treat them." Bjorn approached Magnus. "My brother, there are more terrible things in this facility." "What things?" "They are injecting elven DNA into humans. They are trying to create a hybrid army." "For what?" "To fight us." This was very bad news. They weren't just conducting research, they were actively preparing for war. "Then this is just the beginning," said Magnus. "Yes. The real war has not yet begun." As they returned to the car, Elias asked Caspian, "Do you regret it? Waking up?" "No," Caspian said with determination. "Now I know why I woke up." "Why?" "To help in this war. Because I understand both the elven and the human worlds." "And so do I," said Astoria. As they traveled in silence in the car, they all knew that they could never return to their old lives, because a secret war had begun between humans and elves, and they were in the middle of it. When they arrived at Torsten's safe house, the beings they had rescued were in a terrible state. Lars, in particular, was mentally very confused. His body was in its 30s, but his mind was still like that of a 7-year-old child. "Where's Mum?" he kept asking. Caspian said he would take me home. This pained Caspian greatly. "Lars, I couldn't take you home." "Why?" "Because I was lost too." Torsten's house was an old, Scandinavian-style wooden house, deep in the forest. The inside was filled with runes and had very powerful protection spells. "You are safe here," said Torsten. "But we can't stay for long. Why not? Because they will find us. Project Alfheim is a very large organization. While Magnus was helping the injured Bjorn, Elias was talking to Torsten. Uncle Torsten, how long has this Project Alfheim existed? For a very long time. At least 100 years. 100 years. Yes. And I have old records. I want to show them to you. Torsten opened a hidden cabinet at the back of the room. Inside were very old notebooks. This is my great-grandfather's journal from the 1890s. When he opened the journal, they saw texts written in Old Swedish. I'll translate, said Torsten, and began to read. October 15th, 1894. Strange men came to the town. They say they work for the government, but their real purpose is us. They are looking for the Leo Salfa and the DK. October 22nd, 1894. Sven's daughter has disappeared. Little Astrid. She was one of USA half-elf. The men took her. November 3rd, 1894. Horrible, we found Astrid, but she is no longer Astrid. They have changed her. She is neither elf nor human. Anymore, something very different. What does this mean? Asked Elias. It means these experiments started a very long time ago, and they were successful. Torsten turned the page. November 10th, 1894. Astrid spoke. She told of terrible things. They are stealing our power, and with this power, they plan to do very bad things. November 15th, 1894. Astrid is dead, but her last words were, they will build a great army, neither elf nor human, stronger than both. God help us. Caspian was very worried as he listened to these records. So they've been doing this for more than 100 years. Yes, and now they are much more advanced. Astoria interjected, but why? Why do they want to fight us? Torsten found another page in the journal. November 20th, 1894. I have learned the truth. Their leader is a man, Dr. Heinrich Zimmermann. He has said, the elves are hindering the evolution of humanity. They must be destroyed so that humans can reach their true power. Heinrich Zimmermann, said Magnus. I've heard that name. Who is he? A very old paranormal researcher, but he is dead. Torsten shook his head. No, he is not. Look at this entry. December 1st, 1894. Zimmermann has injected himself with elven blood. He is now immortal. And his plan is much bigger. He wants to fill the whole world with a hybrid race. That's impossible, said Elias. He died 130 years ago. What if he didn't? This thought terrified everyone. Magnus continued to examine the journal. What else does it say? Torsten went deeper. December 15th, 1894. I have learned Zimmermann's true plan. He doesn't just want elven power. He wants to unite elves and humans to make himself a god. December 20th, 1894. It is too late. Zimmermann has become too powerful, but we are also prepared. If we cannot stop him, the world will be ruined. So did they manage to stop him? Torsten opened the last page. December 25th, 1894. There was a great battle. We thought we had defeated him, but he only went into hiding, and one day he will return. The writers of this journal must warn future generations. Zimmermann is still alive, and his plan continues. The room fell silent. So, Caspian said slowly, the Project Alfheim we encountered is actually a continuation of Zimmermann's work. Yes, and if he is really still alive, he must have become very powerful, said Magnus at that moment. Little Leela, whom they had rescued, came to their side. I know Zimmermann, she said in a childish voice. You know him. how he created me. I saw him a lot in the laboratory. What does he look like? Very old, but at the same time very young. His hair is white, but his eyes are golden. And he is very scary. What did he do to you? He was giving me new powers, but each time I was moving a little further away from myself. This was horrible. Zimmerman was still transforming children. Lila, Astoria said gently, "Do you know what Zimmerman is planning?" "Yes. He is going to do something very big." "What?" "He will change the whole world. Both elves and humans will become like him." "How will he do that?" "With a great spell. But for that, he needs a lot of power." Caspian suddenly stood up. "What kind of power?" "Very pure elven power. And very pure human power. So he needs our power." "Yes, your power is especially important." "Why?" "Because you became both a child and an adult. That is very rare." Astoria was also worried. "Is my power important too?" "Yes. You crossed from dream to reality. That is also very rare." She turned to Magnus and Elias. "And you two are also very important." "Why us?" "Magnus is a very ancient DK Kalfa. And Elias is a half-elf, but did not grow up in the magical world. This combination is very powerful." Everyone understood they were what Zimmerman wanted. "Then," said Magnus, "it is very dangerous for us to stay here." "Where can we go?" Torsten opened the map. "Very far away. Maybe to Greenland or Iceland. But if we run, what will he do to the other beings?" "I don't know." Lars suddenly spoke up. "I remember." "What do you remember?" "Zimmerman. When he first took me, he showed me something." "What did he show you?" "A big map. It had the whole world on it. And there were many dots." "What kind of dots?" "Elven places. He had marked all the elven places. Why? He was going to destroy them, one by one." This was very bad news. Zimmerman didn't just want them. He was planning to destroy the entire elven world. "What else do you remember?" asked Magnus. "He had built a very large machine of metal and crystal." "What did the machine do?" "It stole power. It stole power from the elves and gave it to him." Ingrid also began to speak. "I remember, too. That machine, it was very painful." "Did he use it on you?" "Yes, a few times. Each time I became weaker." "So where is that machine?" Leela answered. "In a very deep place, underground, and it's very big." "How big?" "As big as a city." This seemed impossible. "A machine as big as a city?" "Yes. And to run that machine, he needs very special power." "What power?" "Our power. The power of all of us together." Now everyone understood. Zimmerman was going to use them as bait. He would run his giant machine with their power and change the whole world. "So what should we do?" asked Elias. Magnus stood up. "We have to stop him. How? He is too powerful. But we are also powerful. And now we know the truth." Torsten interjected. "But first, we have to find that machine." "Where could it be?" Lila thought. "I was taken there. It was a very dark place, and very cold." "What else do you remember?" "There was the sound of water. A very big sound of water. A waterfall. Bigger. It was like an ocean." Magnus looked at the map. "By the ocean, underground. A very large place." "Where could it be?" "I think in the north of Norway, near the Lofoten Islands." "What's there?" "Very old caves, and very powerful elven energy. So we have to go there." "Yes. But it will be very dangerous." "Why?" "Because he will be waiting for us." Elias stood up. Then let's go. It's time to finish this. Are you sure? Yes. Because this is not just our story anymore. It's the story of the whole world. And that night, they began to make their plans. Tomorrow, they would face Zimmerman. One last time. But this time, not just to escape, but to stop him.